Okay, can you hear me? Is that close enough? Okay. My name is Andrew Gray, and I speak for myself.
This meeting is being recorded.
Only.
Sorry, just started the recording.
My name is Andrew Gray, and I speak for myself only. I do not represent my employers in any way. I live in House District 19 in Anchorage. My family moved into our home there in 2019, just 2 weeks before I deployed with the Alaska Army National Guard for 10 months. So I have a relationship with the military and with JBER, and that's the bulk of what I will be testifying about. While on that deployment, I was having lunch with some enlisted soldiers in the dining facility, and I asked one where he had grown up. He said the trailer park across from the Northway Mall here in Anchorage. I remarked that I had never met anyone who had grown up in a trailer park, and after a pause, all 4 enlisted soldiers I was seated with explained that they too had spent at least part of their childhoods in trailer parks. I tell this story to illustrate a fact about the U.S. military. Many young people who sign up to serve do so to escape the poverty of their childhoods. You see, I, as someone unfamiliar with trailer park living, am the anomaly. Those with first-hand knowledge are the majority. 3 hots and a cot is a popular saying describing the promise of food and shelter for many 18-year-olds, and it would not be a given without the military's help. A 2018 demographic analysis by the Council on Foreign Relations showed that over 60% of enlistments came from neighborhoods with a median household income between $38,000 and $80,000. 19% of recruits came from households with an income of less than $38,000. The average annual income in Eagle River is $129,768. This means more than 80% of military recruits come from households unlike those in Eagle River. And if lower enlisted choose to live off base, they inevitably end up in lower cost housing in Mountain View, North Muldoon, or even in my neighborhood in Midtown. And yet, members of this board are insisting on pairing Eagle River with JBER. What military members can afford to live in Eagle River? Higher ranking officers. The Congressional Research Service reports that 63% of enlisted service members are white, 37% non-white. JBER is actually even more diverse, with 60.7% of the voting age population identifying as white and just under 40% identifying as non-white. However, 88% of senior military officers are white. And it is these higher-ranking officers who can afford to live in Eagle River. I should point out that the voting age population in Chugiak Eagle River is over 73% white. In recent litigation that made its way to the Alaska Supreme Court, this redistricting board was found guilty of an unconstitutional gerrymander for creating a Senate district pairing Eagle River House District with an East Anchorage House District. I would argue that the Senate district pairing Eagle River with JBER is just as egregiously unconstitutional, if not more so. The poor minority voices of JBER will be overridden by the rich white residents of Eagle River. And that is what the goal is here, to increase the Senate representation of Eagle River. As board member Bethany Markham so eloquently stated on the record on November 5th, 2021, quote, "This actually gives Eagle River the opportunity to have more representation," end quote. Why? Why would anyone want Eagle River, of all places, to have more representation? Well, the Chugiak Eagle River area has been a conservative stronghold since prior to Alaskan statehood. In fact, that area was so conservative that they actually opposed statehood in the 1950s. So if there were a way to increase their representation, one could enshrine a conservative advantage in the makeup of the Alaskan Senate for the next 10 years. Yesterday, Chairman Binkley explained to a testifier that she could not compare Anchorage reapportionment reapportionment of assembly districts with Alaska redistricting, that these were two completely different processes. Although the processes may be different, the conservative objective is the same: increase Eagle River's representation. During Anchorage reapportionment, Eagle River was guaranteed from the start 2 assembly members. So in that case, in order to increase representation, the tactic was to minimize the population represented by those 2 Eagle River assembly members. This was achieved by fierce testimony against the pairing of Eagle River with any other part of Anchorage. The option most strongly considered was a pairing of Chugiak Eagle River with Hillside in South Anchorage. I would like to quote some of that testimony from a town hall held on January 27, 2022. Eagle River Assembly member and current unopposed candidate for State House, Jamie Allard, said, quote, "It was brought up the fact that if we are connected to Hillside or we are connected to Girdwood, you would literally have to ride a Dall sheep in order to get to those areas. Unless we drove approximately from our location almost an hour to get to Hillside and an hour and a half to get down to Girdwood." I would also point out that when folks are saying that we have things in common over there, look at who their elected officials are. Suzanne LaFrance and John Weddleton. Wonderful people, but you have to still ask, what do we have in common with those areas? We don't. End quote. Although I personally disagree with Ms. Allard's assessment that the only means of transport, or one of the only means of transport, would be riding Dall sheep, I want to thank her explicitly for stating that this is a political process. And although the method is different here in redistricting, the goal is not. By avoiding pairing the 2 Eagle River House districts with each other, which by any metric is how you would create the most compact, contiguous, socioeconomically integrated Senate district, the Redistricting Board is seeking to expand Eagle River's influence on the Alaska Senate. We know from numerous studies that voter participation increases with family income. In the 2016 presidential election, 48% of voters in the lowest income category voted, while almost double that, a whopping 86% of voters in the highest income category cast a ballot. This trend holds true for Eagle River. Eagle River consistently participates in elections at a significantly higher rate than their lower income neighbors. So if Eagle River gets 2 senators, you can bet it will be Eagle River electing those senators, not the JBER House District, nor the South Anchorage House District. We will get 2 Laura Reinbolds, not 2 Bill Wilikowskis. Please allow me to again quote Bethany Markham. Quote, "This actually gives Eagle River the opportunity to have more representation." End quote. She is absolutely right. And that's why this plan is absolutely wrong. Giving Eagle River extra representation is unconstitutional and should not be allowed. So why is this board continuing with this ill-intentioned plan? Because there are no adverse consequences to the board adopting another unconstitutional gerrymander. There is only upside for them. There's a chance that no lawsuit will be brought forth, and therefore the gerrymander will stand for the next 10 years. Alternatively, litigation could be pursued, but it will take time. Even on an expedited schedule, it would take several months after an appeal to the Alaska Supreme Court before you are sent back here to rework the Senate pairings. And by then, the November election would be approaching, and it might be too close to print new ballots. No one on this board will be held personally liable for any unconstitutional pairings. So what have you got to lose? Nothing. What have you got to gain? Continued Republican control of the Alaska Senate. With that knowledge, I make this plea in vain, I know. But nevertheless, I ask all 5 of you to please oppose the Senate pairings in map 3B. Please support the Senate pairings in map option 2, which keep like parts together. JBER with downtown, South Anchorage with South Anchorage, and Eagle River with Eagle River. Thank you for allowing me to testify, and thank you for your service to the state of Alaska.
Andrew, there's a few questions. I think John might be muted, but I see Bethany has her hand up.
I am. I apologize. Nicole and Bethany, go ahead, Nicole.
Thank you for your testimony today, Andrew. And it's probably not a surprise that I agree with a large amount of what you said today. Peter, can you please pull up the map that we worked on yesterday that showed the route from the southern portion of District 9 to District 22?
Okay, yeah, give me a second.
And I want to acknowledge all of the points that you put on the record about gerrymandering, but I also want to bring you back to the Constitution, because at this point in our work, it's very clear what we're supposed to do under Article 6, Section 6, which says that each Senate district shall be composed as near as practicable of 2 contiguous House districts. And this is the point that I continue to struggle with as a board member as to why we would pair a House district that is at some points 87 miles away with another one that a Anchorage Assembly member, as you testified today, has said the most practical means of traveling is on the back of a Dall sheep, which I don't believe any Alaskan wants to do, or the representative who's elected to represent those 2 Senate pairings. So Peter's going to bring up a House map here that shows the primary mode of transportation via either the New Seward Highway or up through Lake Otis to, Elmore to Lake Otis here. And looking at this map, Andrew, are these the 2 most practicable contiguous linkages in your opinion?
Yes. These are the most practical. This is how I would drive between South Anchorage and Eagle River.
Okay, thank you. And I see here that if you took the New Seward Highway from District 9, you would cross through District 10, 13, 14, 17, 18, 23, and a bit of 21. So that's 7 House districts by my estimation.
Correct.
Is that the most practicable linkage, or are there more natural linkages that would make districts closer together?
Well, as was discussed yesterday in the testimony, I mean, you can use the Crow Pass Trail, but it's 21 miles long and it's only usable half of the year, and it's you'd have to be in very good physical shape.
Okay. And then the other route would be what's in red, what I'm going to call the Elmore route, in which case you would go through districts 11, 12, 19, 21, 20, 23, and that's 6.
Correct.
So again, not very practicable in terms of contiguity. Correct. Or the most practicable. Thank you. That's it.
Okay, Bethany? Bethany, I think you're still muted. There you go.
I was looking for the mute button. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'd like to say thank you, Mr. Gray, very much for testifying as a fellow military member. I want to thank you for your service. I'm not sure if we were deployed at any of the same times or not, but if we were, I'm sorry that I didn't get a chance to meet you in theater. But I wanted to ask, because you did mention my statement several times, and I wanted to ask if you had also heard what I said on the record about Muldoon and the configuration that we gave Muldoon in the proclamation plan.
Well, I have followed the Redistricting Board very closely since November, but I'm not sure if I remember the statement. So if you want to remind me, that would be helpful.
Sure. What I talked about was the number of potential senators that Muldoon would have been able to elect in the same plan that you're referring to, that would have allowed Eagle River to potentially choose 2 senators.
Right.
Does that ring a bell at all?
Yes, it does ring a bell. And what I would say, and it was present in my testimony, was the well-established fact by multiple studies that the higher the income, the higher the voter participation. So if you pair a high-income area such as Eagle River with a lower-income district, the higher income area is going to have a much higher degree of voter participation. So the chances of the higher income area being the group that chooses the senator is much, much more likely. So what you would end up with is 2 Eagle River senators, not a Muldoon senator for Eagle River, if that makes sense.
Well, I appreciate that that is someone's theory, but I think the reality of what we're looking at in terms of the senators that are elected in Alaska show that that's not the case, that there are certainly places where we have been able to elect senators from areas that are not necessarily in line with the philosophy that you just quoted from. So
I will send you the studies. They are not theories, but they are actually studies from the 2016 presidential election that showed that the lower the income, the less likely someone was to vote.
So back to the question that I had asked, I wanted to clarify, since I wasn't sure if you heard that the way that the configuration was in the last plan, Muldoon actually had House representation in 3 different districts. And so certainly it was never my intent, and is not my intent, to try to get extra representation by Eagle River, as has been purported by some. It was to give Eagle River just the opportunity to participate in elections and choose their representatives and senators in the same way that Muldoon would be able to have that opportunity. And in the case of the plan that was drawn for the proclamation, Muldoon would have had the opportunity to participate in and have 3 different senators to represent them in the Alaska State Senate. So I just wanted to make sure that you had that information, but thank you for your testimony.
Yes, well, so for clarity, what you're saying is that what you were trying to do was help Muldoon at the expense of Eagle River.
That's not what I said. I said that they would have the opportunity to elect that in the same way that Eagle River would have the opportunity. The intent was not to give anyone more representation than any others. That is words that other people have put in my mouth. The whole exchange that happened at the time was someone asked me what could be the result, and I said the result could be that Eagle River would have more representation, just as the result could be that Muldoon would have more representation.
Ma'am, what is the harm of pairing Eagle River with Eagle River?
Well, first of all, there's only one Eagle River. The other seat is Chugiak, Peters Creek, and JBER. And so just to clarify that there's one Eagle River seat where most of Eagle River resides. But the harm of pairing Chugiak, Peters Creek, and JBER together with the Eagle River seat is that JBER then is orphaned. And JBER then is forced to do as is purported in Plan Number 2, to be paired with the downtown district. And there certainly can be no bigger differences than downtown and JBER. So when you're talking about folks that live in, along 9th Street or Bootleggers Cove or 13th Street and I Street, in those areas, compare those folks with the people who live in base housing. We're talking about 2 very different sets of living and such. And so that is the harm, is that by forcing those 2 districts together, the intent, in my opinion, is to force JBER to then be swallowed up by the downtown district.
Roger, I hear what you're saying. I would argue that most people who live in JBER housing cannot afford to live in Eagle River, and the differences are just as distinct.
And I would have to differ with you there, because I think that Eagle River is much more working class compared to downtown, which is much more expensive than Eagle River. The
average household income is $129,000 in Eagle River. So I would differ with you there, and I will be happy to send you those figures. Yeah, I would look forward to getting those. As a military person, I can say that I myself have lived in Eagle River, and so I know that. And I know many people who do, being still an active military member, and so I know many folks who do. So I do know that it is affordable to them, but I'm sure there are exceptions. So thank you for your testimony today, Mr. Gray.
Thank you, Mr. Gray. Nicole, is that your hand back up again?
It is. Thank you very much. And Andrew, thank you as well for your service as a military spouse. My husband also came from those same demographics that you mentioned earlier, and was able to rise out of what would probably be considered poverty, and go on to the U.S. Naval Academy at Annapolis and graduate, do 13 years active duty, 2 tours overseas in Iraq and Afghanistan. So I do appreciate the sacrifice and service to the country. I also want to just add for the record here, again, this what I consider at this point to be overemphasis on similarities and differences between the two, between all of the Senate pairings in Anchorage, because the task before us is very clear at this point. We have to pair the most contiguous districts as practicable. And that's where I continue to have a problem with option 3B, is 9 and 12 are not the most contiguous districts as practicable. But I also want to state for the record here, because I think Bethany was going down a slippery slope here with that argument that this is actually giving Muldoon 3 separate senators. The court has already reviewed that and found that it actually, quote, fails and falls flat in the face of reality. And instead, it seems Muldoon is actually cracked among multiple Senate districts and its voting strength is diluted as a result. Again, page 69 of the opinion. So I don't want that perception to be out there that the board did this in a way to somehow bolster the voting power in Muldoon. It was found to be the exact opposite.
Okay. You still got your done, Nicole?
I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gray, very compelling testimony. You did a great job. One quick question, maybe if I could. Just
Sure.
about contiguity. Do you think that means, in terms of, you've equated it to how you have to drive and drive through more?
I'm sorry, sir. I'll just cut you off. That's Jamie Allard. That was not me.
In terms of the definition of contiguity relates to drivability in a car?
I personally don't. That would be Jamie Allard. I would refer you to Republican thought leader Jamie Allard to discuss that.
You don't believe that it's any more or less contiguous if you have to drive through a district to get from one place to another?
I know that in Alaska, we have Senate districts that are not necessarily drivable, but I would argue, and I agree, it could be argued, I think it's easier to drive from Eklutna to Eagle River than from Portage to Eagle River.
I would agree with you too, but do you think in terms of the Constitution and the word contiguity, it refers to driving?
I think that you want the most compact, contiguous, and socioeconomically integrated districts that you can find. And I would say, without a doubt, that pairing Eklutna, Peters Creek, the north part of JBER, with Eagle River is a more compact, contiguous, socioeconomically integrated pairing than South Anchorage, Girdwood, all the way down to Portage. I just think that common sense tells you that that's a more compact, contiguous, socioeconomically integrated Senate pairing. Do I think it's possible in certain circumstances to have non-contiguous Senate pairings? I do. I do think that's possible.
And so we are talking about Senate pairings here, and
correct.
You're obviously well-schooled and up to speed on this. But with regard to the Senate pairings, what's your understanding of what the Constitution says we are required to look at for Senate pairings?
I don't know.
If it would help you, Andrew, I can show you that part of the Constitution.
I'm going to be shown that part of the Constitution, sir. Just a moment.
Well, I thought maybe you had a legal background. You did.
I do not have a legal background.
Argument.
You know what? I will be honest with you. I would not be testifying today if you guys hadn't had these extra days of testimony. If you had asked me to testify on Tuesday, I would have had nothing to say. It was really from listening to the hearings the last couple of days that got me to thinking. So thank you for the extra days of testimony. That allowed me to kind of get my thoughts together. But no, I'm not legal. So I'm going to quote from the Constitution, each Senate district shall be composed as near as practicable of 2 contiguous House districts. So I think what this is saying is that sometimes it's not practicable to have 2 contiguous House districts. However, in this case, it is very practicable to pair Peters Creek, Chugiak, North JBER with Eagle River. So I think that is the
You
most
mentioned
practical answer.
before about the socioeconomic.
Oh yeah, so that was for House
and
districts. I understand that this is for Senate, so you don't have to include that. But it does seem to be the most contiguous would be South Anchorage with South Anchorage, South JBER with downtown, and Peters Creek with Eagle River.
Okay. Thank you very much, Andrew. And again, you did an excellent job. You're very articulate, and I'm very impressed.
Thank you so much.